Okay, let's get started. We're going to start with Excellence in Public School Act and the fact that we voted, and then it went over to EHE yesterday. EHE, keep saying that. Triple E. We have Stacy here with us, and she's going to tell us all the wonderful things they did over there.
I will. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So in front of you, each of you should have a chart, and this chart is a comparison of all the policy provisions that are in the bill as introduced by the governor, the House amendments in House Bill 504, and the Senate amendments adopted by Triple E last night. There's also a copy of the reprint that incorporates all of those amendments, plus the 3-member amendments that were also adopted by the committee. The first page of your chart and the top row of the second page, that's all the Budget and Taxation Committee amendments that this committee adopted last Friday, even though it seems like a year ago. So the committee adopted those with no changes. The second page of the chart involves changes to the community schools program. So in the proposed bill, the governor required that at least each local school system have 2 eligible schools, and then the local school system may expend up to 50% of funds on behalf of those schools and develop a plan in consultation with eligible schools, including central administrative costs. The House made some changes that would make that at least 10 eligible schools. It said that the local school system may expend only up to 40% of funds on behalf of schools. They cannot expend funds for central administrative costs, and required a specific report sent to each eligible school if the local school system does provide an itemized, does expend money on their behalf. The Senate amendments essentially is kind of a split the baby, where it was at least 10 eligible schools or 35% of local school systems have eligible community schools. And the reason for that is for the smaller school systems, each of them may not have 10 schools, but they may have up to 35% of eligible schools, so they could participate by expending administrative costs. The Senate kept 50% in the law, and it kept the House's report that got sent to each of the community schools when money was spent at the local school system on their behalf. Any questions? Okay. There's a community school evaluation report that gets submitted to only MSDE. AIB was stricken by the governor's proposal, and then MSDE transmits that final report to AIB and makes it publicly available.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am?
Where are we now?
We're on page 2 of the chart.
Okay, page 2 of the chart.
Right, of the chart. Okay. And we're discussing community schools in the second row under community schools. If you're looking in the reprint, it should be page 14. Sure. The House made some minor changes to the reporting requirement, and the Senate adopted those House changes. Down to the third row, there is a revision in the governor's bill, revising the definition of wraparound services and creating an Office of Community Schools and Expanded Learning time in the department. The House revised the definition of wraparound services to include offering evidence-based in-school and in-person tutoring provided during the school day, and struck the other services defined by the department or guidance from that definition. The Senate adopted those House amendments. And finally, the last item on the next page of the chart regarding community schools is it authorizes, the governor's plan would authorize a local school system to adopt countywide community school implementation plans. It requires a set of measurable goals tied to specified priorities each year, and an annual review of an implementation plan, and allows the department to withhold funds for non-compliance. The House made some changes to this. They struck the authorization for the countywide community school implementation plans. They required the setting of measurable goals for at least once every 2 years, a review of an implementation plan at least once every 2 years, and they struck the authority to withhold the funds for non-compliance. The Senate amendments that were adopted keep the countywide implementation plans, take the House's requirement to review the implementation plans and the goals once at least every 2 years, and keeps the fund withholding language. Those are all the changes for community schools.
I'm confused. So are we keeping the fund withholding language or not keeping it?
Keeping it, yes.
We are keeping it. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. The next category was minimum school funding. These are amendments only added by the Senate. You can find those on page 15 of your preprint if you're following along there. These amendments add to the list of reasons that a county board may request a waiver from the minimum school funding provisions. But the committee should note that already there is no closed universe of reasons. A county board could request a waiver for any reason, but certain reasons are highlighted in the law. And the Senate amendments.
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
Sure.
The county can do what?
So there's minimum school funding provisions. That's the 75% files the child provision. So there's, AIB is authorized to establish a waiver process, and county boards can come to the AIB and ask to get waived from following that requirement. So this just adds a couple reasons to that list of reasons that they can request a waiver for, including any reason. Okay? And then it adds, it allows county boards to report on the minimum school funding aggregated by each school versus by blueprint bucket. Okay? The Collaborative Time Innovation Demonstration Grant is the Budget and Tax Committee. You adopted a 4-year pause in the beginning of the collaborative time. So this program essentially would it, pardon me? Oh, my apologies, Mr. Chair. The 4-year pacing in the collaborative time. So this grant program provides some money to the local school system so they can begin to start thinking about innovative ways to start implementing collaborative time when the implementation period starts in the after 4 years. The Senate made no changes to this program. The House did strike it, though. Okay. If you go to the next page of your chart, there's a discussion about the school leadership training program. The governor's proposal makes this 2 parts: the school system leadership training program and the Maryland School Leadership Academy. Essentially, this is a focus for principals and other school leaders. The House bill strikes that, and the Senate makes no change and keeps this program in the bill. Okay. Next is the National Teacher Recruitment Campaign. The purpose of this program is to bring licensed and prospective teachers to the state. It would end on July 1, 2029. That's in the governor's proposed plan. The House made no changes. The Senate made no changes.
Is there anywhere in there that talks about new teachers, especially if they're haven't been teachers, what kind of training they'll have before we hire them as teachers?
So
There's
this
been some
program is
discussion
for,
about the people that have lost their jobs and making them teachers, and which is great, except that they have to be trained somehow to be teachers.
right, so there's existing programs within MSDE that have various pathways that you can take to get a teaching license. The Grow Your Own program that's coming up a little later, that's essentially targeted toward individuals who don't have a teaching license and getting them a teaching license.
Okay, but they won't be in the classroom until they're teachers, correct?
Generally, yes, but the focus of the Grow Your Own is also on experiential learning. So it's more focused on, as we'll get to, but it's collaboratives that work in cohorts to encourage individuals who are already embedded in schools or interested in becoming teachers and supporting them by getting them onto a teacher licensure path.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to follow up on our Senate Majority Leader's question. So we've seen over the years where there have been dispensation has been given for folks who decide they want to become educators. And however, with the caveat that you will get your certifications within a certain period of time. Well, local jurisdictions have sort of fallen off. So we've seen the number of individuals who are not certified in the classrooms that has grown over the years. So who is going to be keeping that in check as we move along so we don't find ourselves in the same position? Is that AIB or I'm not
So
sure?
I think you're talking about provisionally licensed teachers.
Yeah.
Who they don't have the full licensure, but they are working toward a license. That's what the provisional licensure is they are in the classrooms, they are working with kids right away, but they are on a path to get there.
And the funding and the allowance of time to actually get those certifications. So is that program or that process tight enough to ensure that we aren't coming back later? Because we kind of heard this before. I understand the intent here, but I think as we move forward, we need to make sure that that's going to occur. Because we are short with teachers, we don't want to put uncertified folks in classrooms. So we just want to be careful and be sure what we're doing.
Understood. I mean, that is definitely the goal in different parts of this, is to find teachers everywhere we can, from out of state to bring them in, individuals who are in the classroom who want to be teachers, we want to give them support. That's done through the Grow Your Own program. They've made changes to credentialing processes to allow teachers to come not just through the traditional educator prep program, but Teach America and all those other things. So there's definitely changes in the blueprint that's working toward that goal.
I got you. And lastly, Mr. Chair, if I might, the accountability component, where is that to ensure that it's happening?
I'm not really sure. These are kind of grant programs. So, but I can get back to you. We can figure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next is the National Teacher Recruitment. Yes. Okay. The Maryland Teacher Relocation Incentive Grant. So this would, as the governor's proposal, it would be $2,000 incentive grant with a 2-year teaching commitment. The House amendments changed the focus from a program that just let me start again here. So the changes the focus to incentivize teachers to come to Maryland instead of reimbursement to partially offset moving expenses. It's just a straight grant. And the Senate accepted those House amendments. This is that career ladder collaboration time. This is the provision in the law where the pacing would start in July and 29 versus July and 25. The House amendments, they push back the 8-year phase in just till July 26 versus 25. The Senate accepts the original provisions in the governor's bill. The next is the new Academic Excellence Program. And this program would provide job-embedded, targeted teacher coaching and professional development support. The coaches are hired at the MSDE level, not at the local level, and the local school systems may elect to participate in this program. It would begin in the beginning years of the program in 26 and 27. The focus would be on elementary schools and literacy, and it adds a special fund to fund this. Essentially, these would be coaches. They would live in schools. They don't live in MSDE. They would be assigned to 2 to 4 different schools in a certain region. And then MSDE would provide the best training, best practices in coaching. They would look to the needs of the local school system, find the educators that need the most support, and provide them direct coaching. That's the goal of this program. So there was some confusion about the changes here. If you look in your reprint, you'll see it as stricken. The only reason it's stricken is because it's moved for drafting purposes to a different subtitle in the education article. And then the House made the framework of the program a little more robust. So the Senate amendments accept the change in the drafting and moving it to a different subtitle. And there was some slight programmatic language changes in the Senate amendments.
You said these changes were part of the new amendments. If we could
Yes.
find them.
Those are on page 25.
25, thank you very much. Thank-
Okay.
And I have a question about this. Can you explain to me, and I understand this is policy and not our area, but why is this being done at MSDE level and not at local school level?
I think Mike Thomas is here. He might be able to explain this the easiest. I mean, this is their baby. If you're willing, Mr. Chair.
Hello, for the record, my name is Mike Thomas, Deputy Legislative Officer for Governor Moore. The reason we're trying to hire individuals at the MSD level and kind of push them down to the local school systems, sorry, Senator. The reason we're trying to hire these individuals at MSDE and then push them down to the local school system is that not every LEA has the same amount of coaches. There are about 5 LEAs right now that don't have coaches. They're also, it wildly varies between LEAs. Some LEAs have coaches where, for example, at Mr. Chair's district in Howard, there's about 372 teachers per coach. Other LEAs are smaller, have like a smaller number of coaches. But we think that providing this direct targeted support can help really grow the impact of the literacy initiative that the superintendent is trying to push. We also think this is a way we can very quickly show gains in our literacy scores as we move forward.
I'm sorry, you think it would show gains quicker having them come from MSDA than the LEA?
Correct. The coaches that are at the LEAs right now, because of the changes we made to the blueprint on the career ladder, they've moved from being full-time coaches to now being coaches plus teachers. These individuals that we hire by MSD, their entire job would be to focus on educating, supporting the educators. They wouldn't be pulled for lunch duty or other duties as assigned, and that's why we think that there's a real impact there that we can provide.
Okay, I'll follow up offline. Thanks.
So it might not be the exact right time, but I think it's part of it. So when we're talking about the coaching programs and the other thing you said, the recruitment program, do we have a breakdown on what the cost on all these things are? Because there was the bill that was introduced, there was a savings amount. And then what we did, a week or so ago, whenever that was, which kind of cut it in half. So I know that number, it's around like 1.2 billion. But what are the costs on all these other programs? Do we have that like an itemized list or anything like that?
Yes, for the teacher recruitment campaign, in FY26, we proposed to spend about $1 million. For the academic excellence program, in the first year, we would build up from 50 to 200 coaches. In total, we would spend $17 million in FY26.
Okay. So just 18 million is the only thing that goes back into this?
There would also be money for the Grow Your Own program. We proposed originally $34 million. We know that number's been reduced in the House already to the DLS recommendation. I don't know that number off the top of my head. But we proposed like some other spendings. But
I guess what's the, if you can't, what's the total number? 'Cause I remember we talked about this for a couple weeks ago. That was
the total
X amount of savings, and then there's X amount that gets reinvested back into it.
the total that we were proposed to spend in FY26, and all this is subject to negotiation in the budget, would be approximately $72 million
72.
for FY26.
Okay. And then on the out years, I mean, you said that twice, FY26, which makes me think that it's going to change in
Sure.
27, 28.
For FY27, the total spend for all these programs combined would be $88 million.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
88 million.
88.
102 million in FY28.
Uh-huh.
And then in FY29, 118 million.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got two different things, but I wanted to unpack the one that you're talking about with the coaches a little bit. So they're hired at the MSD level. Are they floating coaches? Do they stay at that specific site? Do they go throughout the jurisdiction? Do they work in multiple jurisdictions? How do you all envision something like that?
Sure. So there'd be approximately one coach per about 12 teachers. They would float between about 2 or 4 different schools, depending on the number of educators that they have to hit. Some of them will be entirely focused in one county. In more rural districts, they may float between several counties or several schools, but having that same kind of like targeted 12 number. Where we would place them initially would be based on student test scores that we've seen. where we can kind of see the data. So maybe north part of the county is doing better than south part of the county, so we're going to primarily focus there. So it's not necessarily dependent on the number of coaches in the county. It's dependent on where the student test scores need the most help. That's where we would target those individuals at first.
Got it. And only because it's like not in here, that's why I'm unpacking it, trying to envision it. So I'm assuming that you all took into perspective that each jurisdiction has their unique outliers, specifics, and things of that nature. That's why I asked about the cross jurisdiction. So I assume because we have like regional folks that work through our LEAs and then they are in charge of those respective schools, but like there's somewhat similarities. But like, how do you guys handle, first, just be very clear, is it going to be cross jurisdictional or no? Do you envision this coach to be in one LEA?
Depending on the geography, they may be in several different LEAs.
So I guess this is even more important as we now know that they'll be cross-jurisdictional. How do you guys set criteria? Because it's different teaching in different jurisdictions. And like in the city, we have our own unique outliers from that standpoint. So how do you all foresee that?
I would have to have MSD follow up with you on that specific, but I'm happy to do that with you.
Okay, I will welcome that because we see this, no matter, education isn't the only occupation where things are different, but this is a vast amount, and there are differences in each space, which is why I would assume that something like this happened at the LEA level, but as we're bringing it to the state level, just really just making sure that we get it right. I'm going to move on to page 12, if I can, Mr. Chair. So I was also just trying to envision, page 12 speaks to a county board that expends funds on behalf of the eligible schools. And it says that I guess they then provide the list of services that are provided to the schools. So would they be providing to the principal? Are they providing it to like the parents of the students? Like, and I just think that like the principal's also beholden to some degree. While they do get to spend their own budget, they are beholden to that respective LEA because that's who they work for. So how do you all?
We wanted to go to the school, so that would be the administration of that particular school. I think that some LEAs have felt, what we've heard, the reason that the House wanted to put that language in is that shared services might be used, but apologies, Mr. Chair. Some of the LEAs have felt, some of the schools we've heard from have said that they didn't feel like they knew exactly what the LEAs are spending their dollars on, and so that's why they wanted this language. We see this as a very friendly amendment that just further enhances the transparency of what's being used. So we see this as helpful.
Got it. It's a couple, only because like the principal works for the respective LEA. Like what happens if they don't communicate it?
I don't know.
I think they're not communicating now, and that's the reason for the amendment, is they want to make sure that if the county board does this on behalf of these community schools, that they get the information about what exactly those dollars are being used for, since they're not being at that community school.
Right. I wholeheartedly, I get the concept. I'm just thinking about like the implementation. So you have strong principals that are outspoken. Sometimes they're removed, and then you have some that may be timid and like, but so I get that the transparency isn't happening. This is supposed to push for the transparency, but that doesn't guarantee that it.
The governor's proposal did include the provision that allowed MSD to withhold funding for
Okay.
noncompliance.
Okay. All right. That's how it's going to happen then. Thank you.
Okay. Few more. It's a big bill. We turn now to the Grow Your Own Educators Grant Program. So the program as conceived, it funds collaboratives, which are basically LEAs plus the collective bargaining plus the department or an IHE. And they offer teacher licensure programs with experiential learning emphasis. Essentially, these are targeted at teacher candidates, individuals who are already in schools that want to become teachers, and then this would have a supportive, like cohort-based program to get them a teacher's license. The exact provisional licensed individuals and other individuals who might be in schools, like a paraprofessional who decides they want to move up and be a teacher. So there's minor changes made around the edges here, to what the collaborative plan must be required, to the requirements for teacher candidates. It strikes partnerships with institutions of higher education. It requires that a mentor teacher be assigned to teacher candidates, and it must have a systemic program of experiential learning that results in institutional credits if offered. And each program has to have a designation of a program administrator at the local school system level. And it requires the collaborative plan to include recruitment initiatives with specified targets. The House amendments require the mentor teacher to be regularly employed by the local school system for the entirety of the program and strikes the recruitment initiative provisions. The Senate amendments are the same as the House amendments there. The governor's plan includes a consultation with a national nonprofit entity with experience increasing the number of teachers as providing technical support for the program. The House amendment strikes the provisions requiring the awarding of grants to begin on January 1, 26, and any awards directly to the institutions of higher education. It strikes language requiring MSD in a collaboration to work with the Department of Labor to provide technical assistance. And it authorizes a teacher candidate to serve as a daily substitute teacher under specified circumstances, which I think was a concern of Senator King's. The Senate amendments took those House amendments.
Is this where the teacher apprenticeship amendment is in?
Yes. You want me to talk about it now?
No, I just want to, this is where it is. I'll look it up.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to the initial teacher credentialing and the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. With the initial teacher credentialing, there was an exemption placed in the law for a credentialed teacher from another state or who got licensed through the compact to be exempt from certain state exam and experience requirements. The House struck that and the entire the compact. The Senate made no changes to either of those provisions. Moving on to the last page of your chart, which is the special education funding study. MSD must contract with an independent entity to conduct a study for special ed funding in the state. That's on pages 62 and 63 of your reprint. The House made no changes. The Senate did make some minor changes to what must be considered by that during the study, including a review of a previous study set forth in 2019 on this issue and strikes the pre-K language. And last, the House added an amendment to their bill which adds a requirement that MSDE conduct a study in consultation with the Maryland Center for Community Schools and Towson University to evaluate the concentration of poverty grant program and to establish requirements for community school implementation plans. The Senate rewrote this a bit, that they opened up who MSD may consult with instead of a particular program. It allowed any institution of higher education that conducts research with regard to community schools and made it more clear that the entity with which they are consulting is not one that is authorized to establish these requirements for community schools. The Senate also adopted 3 member amendments. The first was added a temporary exemption to a section in law requiring that digital tools procured by school systems have equivalent access for students with disabilities. And it exempts digital tools that use artificial intelligence to support learning for 3 years. That exemption would expire in June 30th, 2028. Senator Rosapeth referred to an amendment that was adopted too in the Grow Your Own Educators grant program, only for collaboratives that implement a registered teacher's apprenticeship model. MSD must prioritize grants awarded to collaboratives that are composed of more than one local school system, more than one employee organization that implement that teacher apprenticeship model. That model must be administered by MSDE with a standardized curriculum that promotes an on-the-job experiential learning to be leveraged across the state. And the last amendment adopted by the committee was also a Senator Rosa Pepp amendment that extends the requirement that county boards provide certain funding to local workforce development boards to support career counseling program from middle and high school students through fiscal year 28. And it also requires the AIB, the Accountability and Implementation Board, to report to the governor and the General Assembly on the effectiveness of the career counseling program before January 1, 2027. And that.
Any other questions on any of this? Effectively, we've got 3 new amendments to this,
Correct.
right? There were the House amendments that, I guess, we've got both bills. We're going to put both bills in the same position, House and Senate bills. So we'll take those House amendments that were addressed in that discussion. Yes.
Just want to ask a question about teachers that are coming in from out of state. What this document is saying is that now a teacher or an individual can come from out of state, but they're not required to take any kind of test. What's the repeat the requirement for a person wanting to teach in the state of Maryland coming from out of state?
So there was one provision in here that allows, if you look at page 42 of your reprint,
Yeah, I saw
page
that.
42 of your reprint, you'll find the provision that exempts certain credentialed teachers from another state or who license through the state compact. You know, the whole point of the compact is so that there's a reciprocity between the member states, saying that if you are a member of this compact, we agree that your teachers who are licensed there, they can come to work here and they will be licensed without having to follow additional requirements.
So the state of Maryland, the Department of Education, has to be a part of that compact.
Right, so the state has to be a part of that compact. That compact is actually in the bill, and that would be part of the vote.
If a teacher comes in from Pennsylvania, if the state of Maryland is not a part of that compact, Pennsylvania is not a part of the compact, then they are required to take the test. They're required to go through a process, whereby if they're part of the compact, they don't have to do it.
Correct.
Page 42.
Page 42.
I got it. Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
And that's her initial certification. They still have to get recertified in the state. So they still have to uphold Maryland state standards when they're recertified after they've been admitted under the compact.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go back to the coaches only because, we're having these very hard conversations about pulling back on the blueprint, and this is pushing up on the blueprint. So I just want to get an idea of what we're doing. So with these coaches, I'm pretty sure that I heard you say that there are 5 jurisdictions that don't have any coaches, or did I hear you wrong?
There are 3, excuse me. There are 3 LEAs that don't have any coaches listed. 1 LEA did not report back to MSD on the number of coaches that they have. The average number of coaches per teacher, teachers per coach is about 79 across the state. We're trying to drive down to a 1 in 12.
1 in 12.
Coach to teacher ratio.
Okay, so it's 3 jurisdictions, and you're saying that some jurisdictions already have coaches. How many jurisdictions currently have coaches? And I do understand what you're saying in reference to getting the ratio down, which does make sense.
20 of 24 have coaches right now.
20 of 24 have coaches currently. So how many new positions would MSDE be having to get to that ratio of 1 to 12?
For the program, for a program we think to be successful and drive statewide implementation goals, we would eventually by FY29 get to 200 total coaches.
So it'll be 200 by FY29, and we're currently in we're going into FY26.
Yeah, which
So
that year we have 50 coaches.
So over 3 years, you believe that you can find the 200 coaches that you're looking for?
Yes.
And what do you feel as though it is scaling up, and how do you scale over those 3 years to get to the 200?
We propose 50 per year, so, 50, 100, 150, 200.
50, 100, 150. Help me understand, if you don't meet those numbers, what do you all want to do with that money that we're allocating?
I would have to talk to MSD as to how they would view that. The superintendent does believe that she can fully achieve the vision if she's receiving the funding. If she receives less funding, I think we can still not drive as much of an effective implementation, but we can still drive success with fewer dollars. But I think with fewer coaches, we'd have to provide a higher ratio of the number of teachers to coaches, or target fewer LEAs.
This 1 through 70 is what you talked about from a statewide perspective, right? Like, so this is, it may be 1 in 12 already in one jurisdiction, or it may be 1 in 90 in another jurisdiction. Are there any jurisdictions that are currently meeting the ratio that you find sufficient, which is 1 in 12?
No.
What is the lowest tier that is being met right now?
29 coaches.
So 1 in 29 is the lowest that we have at this moment. I got a better understanding, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
On this coaching thing, which I'm very supportive of. The question of the numbers and the ratios and the issues that Senator McCray raising, I think are very reasonable questions, and I don't have an answer to that. But I just want to make the general point that in this little school that I'm on the board of, College Park Academy, we, like many places, have a big math problem. And so one of the things that we moved to, I guess, a year or so ago, is hiring a math teacher coach. And I didn't know about teacher coaches before that. And it turns out that there is a labor pool of not just existing teachers, but teachers who decided they'd rather be teacher coaches than be teachers. And so we ended up being able to hire someone who was experienced just in coaching, who didn't want to be teaching every day, but wanted to coach other teachers. And I just think this is a good model. Maybe it'll take time to scale, may not work perfectly, but I think I've just seen it in action, and I think it's a good thing that we should try to move forward with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up a little bit on, this coaching issue. So my previous question led to accountability. And I think I have a question, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering why MSD is not here. I'm wondering why they're not here today. We're talking about this bill. So that's a little troubling for me. Secondly, this is an important matter. Secondly, you said that there was a jurisdiction that did not respond to you all?
Last year, before the start of the school year, MSD put a survey asking, what's the coach to teacher ratio? One LEA did not respond.
So this goes right back to the accountability piece. I mean, so how does a jurisdiction not respond to you? And what provisions do we have in place going forward? So look, we all want to get this right. And that means accountability at all levels. And for a jurisdiction not to respond, it's pretty, startling for me. And the timeline, right now you say there are 3 jurisdictions that don't have any coaches. Is there a particular reason why those 3 don't have any?
Some of this is based off the blueprint law changes where we put coaches back on the career ladder track.
Can you move this?
Sure.
Your mic up, sorry.
Some of this is based off the changes we made in the blueprint law where we put coaches back on the career ladder track. And so that means that they now have to be teachers of record and teach some during the day. So they're maybe counted as fewer, or just to meet their teacher classroom ratios, they may have not been able to afford coaches.
Well, I appreciate your response, but we're talking about an entire LEA doesn't have one coach out of 3 of them out of the 24, and then 1 didn't respond. And so we're talking about consistency across our state of getting things in place. And so we have 4 jurisdictions that have fallen behind. 1 is not even, of the 4 is not even responding. I just, I'm not sure if you can answer that or if you understand where I'm coming from with that. Those are quite concerning, and here we are at the hour to make a decision on what we're doing going forward. And we need to have some sort of certainty doing that. I know I do. So I just want to register that, folks. Accountability, accountability, accountability. There's a huge commitment dollar-wise that we're being asked to put forth. But it is very troubling to me that we don't have the board folks here to answer questions, that you have to go back and get questions for us. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I have heard, but maybe I can be corrected, about the maybe success rate that we've had or we're having with those that are out there now coaching, and how we're going to implement so many more throughout the state of Maryland. These questions, I think, that are being asked right now are really important, because we're seeing a lot of things that are in question about people getting back to the right people and answering the questions. And we just want to make sure that we're putting the right things in place. And just knowing that if we're putting millions of dollars out there again and opening something else again and putting more money in this, when we're supposed to be cutting back and trying to be more conservative. This has not been conservative in my eyes. But how can we make sure that what we have in place is successful, and we're going to move forward to be even more successful?
The superintendent modeled the program that you have before you after what she did in Mississippi, which has had a continued records of success in student literacy. On the most recent NAEP scores that came out a month or two ago now, students that coming from low poverty backgrounds had the highest test scores in the country. That's sustained even after she has left. Kind of leading Mississippi. 2 other states that kind of followed what Mississippi did have achieved similar gains in their literacy rates. And so that's why, based off like the proven ability of the superintendent to kind of lead these programs, that's why we're very interested in kind of leading these gains here in Maryland as well.
I mean, that's good hearing, but I just want to make sure that we're doing this in Maryland, and making sure that we have a success rate that we can follow up to see where we are maybe now and where we would be in another year or two to see where we are then. I think it would be a good thing for us to get that. So.
Sure. We know that it's going to take time for the coaching to go forward. It's going to take time for teachers to learn the new coaching system and see that. But because this is based off of student test scores, we will see pretty constant results year over year.
It would be good to see that.
My apologies. There you go, Senator Benson.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much. The question I want to ask is, you all have indicated that there was one jurisdiction that chose not to respond at all. And then there are 3 that have no coaching at this point in time. The rest of the counties and Baltimore have coaching.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I must express to this committee and to everybody that I am also in agreement with my colleague to my right here, that we don't have MSEA, because I would be curious to find out what has happened with the status of the students in those 4 jurisdictions. That to me is critical. The second thing is, in my years of being an educator, I have also observed coaching as it's supposed to happen. And a lot of time is spent on training those people to work in the classroom for the coaching and the mentoring and all the other things that go along with a very, very structured job description. They're not pulled out to serve as substitute teachers and all those other things. So I'm just wondering how we can work to get those 4, first of all, we get to get MSEA in here. And the second thing is, Mr. Chairman, what must we do to look at the data for those jurisdictions where there's no coach?
I can attest to you that we can work with MST to provide the committee with that information.
That would be very helpful if we were to look at that. But I am a little disappointed that we have a jurisdiction that chose not to respond. That's very unacceptable. Okay, so what are we going to do here? you're going to get it to us, the data that tells us what has happened with the children or with the students in those 4 jurisdictions when it comes to the academic performance. Is there a correlation between coaching and the academic performance of the children? Am I making any sense in here?
It is, and we can make sure to get you that information.
Huh?
It
Am I
is.
making sense?
You are, Senator. We will make sure to get you that information.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. So just to Senator Jackson's point, I'm assuming that today marks the last day that an LEA won't respond, that in the future they will respond if you ask them to respond?
Well, I would hope so with MSD, yes. I can't attest to that. I'm sorry.
I think MSD sent out the survey. So it wasn't the governor's office that sent out the survey.
Can you repeat that, Stacey? I'm sorry.
I think MSDE sent out the survey to the local jurisdictions. So the governor's office was not didn't send it out on.
No, I understand that, but we have to have some kind of, agreed, and that's why we're partners here. So, of course, the governor didn't send it out. Of course, the governor, but Maryland State Department of Education is obviously a branch of government. So I guess, fine, then let's go that route. Who's going to hold MSD accountable?
The governor's office will make sure that they get that response.
What's that?
We'll make sure that the LEAs respond.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, so what we have before us are these 3 new amendments plus the House actions that have all been described. So all of those I'll count as one amendment at this point, unless somebody has a need to separate any of that.
So moved.
Okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're opposed to the amendments. What's that? Okay.
That was just on the amendments.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got you. All right, so now, as amended, unanimously as amended, we will take a vote on the bill with our initial amendments from the other day, and this is the Senate bill.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. All right. Now I'm going to ask that we amend House Bill 504 in the exact posture
So moved.
as we just did for the Senate bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys. This is putting the House bill in the same posture that we just passed. Huh? No, it's the whole posture of the bill. Oh, well, that's true, Okay, you're right.
Certainly.
Yeah, as amended, you're correct.
He's on top of it. He's on top of it.
He is on top of it. All right, so now the House bill as amended. House bill as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go.
Got it.
There we go. Now we got it. All right, thank you all very much. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take up, so we got a little bit of time, not much. I've got to leave in a minute. But we're going to take up a couple more things here. This is how I see it. We're waiting, that we need the House to get out to do procurement.
Got the up on the board here, explaining their votes right now.
Explaining the votes on the borough bill?
Explaining their votes.
Okay, well, hopefully they'll get here pretty soon. My plan is that we'll do a little bit now, but then I've got to leave for a while. Then we've got, I think we'll come back after procurement if we need to do more voting.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
All right, so House Bill 930, we got to get this moving to the other committee because we're second on this.
Favorable.
Okay, this is the one, everybody knows what this is, right?
Yes.
This was my bill. We know what the vote was. It's the exact same posture. Everybody good to vote on this now?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, send that off to Finance. All right, let's see what we can accomplish on 632.
Senate Bill 632, as amended, alters the requirements for the Women's Pre-Release Center. The bill changes the criteria for location of the new center to be located in Baltimore City on a parcel of land not less than 3 acres. It also increases the number of beds for this facility.
So do they have a piece of property?
They currently have a piece of property that is scheduled to go through the design phase, but it does not meet the requirements
You guys want to come up
of this new language.
in case we need you? Okay,
Under current law, the construction of the pre-release center should have began in 2021, and services were to be provided to the women by June of 2023. The bill requires the department to find a new location meeting the new requirements that are laid out that I mentioned before.
all right, they're shaking their head, they've got a new location. Yes? They have an old location.
To clarify, sorry, Jason Davidson for the record, Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, my colleague Kathy Call here as well. To clarify, a site has been selected. We are in the design phase. The bids were already put out on e-Maryland Marketplace and closed as of March 17th, and the bids are being processed where the award will be given in September for the design. And that's where things currently stand.
How much did we fund it so far?
Currently, we have received $9.25 million starting from fiscal '23.
And the total project?
I believe the total project is around $90 million.
Okay. All right, that's what that is. Okay, what else does this do?
The other part of the legislation is a requirement that services be offered to all of the pre-release women beginning pretty much immediately. A report is due from the department by September, outlining what this program is going to be. Currently, the department offers a program called Project Fresh, and that program is run pretty much by the community. There is no funding available for that program. Their budget for that is zero. They do not even have dedicated staff to that program. So that's where this committee comes in deciding how to fund the program.
And what are they asking for? What's the bill ask for?
The bill does not ask for a specific amount of money. I had a conversation with the department asking how much they thought it would cost, so I will let them.
So what the bill,
Just before you do that, just a second. So if we pass this bill, they're supposed to do something, but we're not adding any additional money for that
Correct. The funding would have to come from,
within the department. What's that?
right, the nine.
No, that's
they
capital
already
money.
have The 9 million.
That's capital money. We're talking about they do pre-release now. You tell me when I'm wrong. You do pre-release now, and this bill is suggesting that some sort of money be used to help in that pre-release program. Is that accurate?
The bill is suggesting that they grow their pre-release program. So that's where the money comes in, because they do not currently have a budget for Project Fresh, which is their
So
pre-release.
so if growth means they'd have to spend something.
Yes.
But we don't know what that something is according to the bill.
Yes.
Yes? Mhm.
So the report, one of the reports that, so you mentioned at the beginning that there's a report that's due about the program, correct?
In the bill, there is a requirement that the department provides a report on how they're going to implement the program, or what they're going to do for the
The
program.
description of the program, the cost of the program, the strategic plan for the program. If not, I'll make an amendment. So just tell me what we need to do.
Okay, it says the department shall develop a plan to provide comprehensive gender-responsive services to eligible individuals on site at the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women on or before September 1, 2025. And they are to begin offering the program to the women before the center is built.
So if I might, Mr. Chairman, so if I can ask the department, from the department, in order to get this program up and running, what do you need?
The legislation, I believe.
I mean, I'm asking you what you need. I'm not asking what the legislation says. What do you need to get a program started to address the female inmates, getting them prepared to be released? What do you need?
So we already
make sure
have.
that the language is where it needs to be.
Yeah, we already have programming for women in pre-release at MCIW. We have a number of programming.
Are you spending money on that right now?
No, we are not. But
So
if,
that's accurate.
yes, that is accurate. If the bill language calls for the expansion of.
Because you have volunteers who come in. Is that
Correct, yeah. So
Okay.
if we were, yeah, and social workers. So if we were to expand,
volunteer social workers?
no,
So you are paying, somebody's getting paid.
we have social workers on staff.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so there's some state dollars are being expended in this program right now.
For social work staff, yes, currently.
Yes.
We don't have dedicated staff, though.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah,
So we're talking about outside work in addition to what's offered through MCE,
yes,
in addition to that,
yes,
and right now. no.
yes.
So, again, so that we have the language correct, what is needed for you all? You said you have a plan. Do you have a plan?
For the,
Plan for this program?
yes, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, so we're already, what the bill would do is it would require expansion. The amendments that the sponsor put in would require us to expand the programming significantly, and we would be required to add additional staff and space, which we don't have. So that's what it would happen. But we are already doing programming, including gender responsive services. It just isn't at the level that the bill is going to require.
Okay, so what funding do you need for that?
So if I may, just to clarify, the bill just requires that the department provide programming at MCIW. Actually, to be specific, it says that the commissioner shall make evidence-based and gender-responsive services available to all female incarcerated individuals with pre-release status, regardless of which facility the female incarcerated individual is currently assigned to. So as Jason said, we are working with DGS right now to build the new pre-release center. We have that location currently in Baltimore City. MCIW is the women's correctional facility. It holds maximum to pre-release security classification. There's about 600 incarcerated women at MCIW. We do provide comprehensive programming and services for all the women at MCIW. Project Fresh is the pre-release tier that women who are on pre-release security classification reside on that tier. On that tier, there is also comprehensive programming and services. So those programming and services we are already providing. I think a lot of the discussion and the confusion is that there is an expectation that the programming and services that are going to be provided at the new pre-release center should also be provided at MCIW. Well, MCIW is a correctional facility that holds, again, over 600 women, and we are limited in space and staffing. So we are providing the programming that we can provide at MCIW. Granted, it is comprehensive, and we're happy to provide you of a list of programming services that are provided. At the new pre-release center, as you can imagine, that is going to be a state-of-the-art facility that the sole purpose is to have expansive space and programming services that will be provided in that center. So I think it's very difficult to compare the two. We already are providing. If we need to expand the services at MCIW, we are limited in space and staffing.
But thank you. If I might, I'm not, maybe you heard, you may have heard and thought that I'm confusing the two. I am not.
My apologies.
I am very familiar with your facilities. I am very familiar with this program. I am asking you, what do you need to enhance the employability and everything else that you get to get folks prepared to leave? Now, you did mention at the end facility constraints that you have for space and other things. And so that's what we need, for this bill. We need to understand exactly what you need.
My apologies,
No,
Senator.
you're fine. You're fine.
If we were going to expand programming at MCIW specifically on Project Fresh, because there is no dedicated staffing, I would say that we would need social workers and reentry specialists and probably some custody staffing that would need to be dedicated to Project Fresh, because those are the ones that are on pre-release status.
Well, and that takes care of my question for the
Yes.
most part right now until somebody generates something else. But we need that information.
Certainly.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just to be clear, you said there's not enough space to do the full-blown work that will be in the new place.
Correct.
Understood. And you just said also that to do more stuff, even at the place you're at, you would need some more staff.
Yes.
And this bill says you should do those things.
Yeah.
And maybe it isn't, maybe you get to, maybe the stuff that you need to do is this much at the new place. The question is there this much you can do at the place that you're at if you put more resources to it, as opposed to what you're doing now? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. And you could do, in other words, the space that you have now, you could do more there than you're doing now, but not as much as you could in the new facility. Or you can do absolutely nothing more now, is my question.
To expand on the current, so to expand upon the current services we have, which is add more services, yes, we'd need more space and staff. To swap out current programming that we have, to bulk up more gender responsive programming than what we already have, which we are doing, that shouldn't be an issue. But if you want to expand the number, yes, we would need more space and staff.
To expand the number.
Number of programs and services compared to what we currently have.
But, and I apologize, being sort of dense on this maybe, but what's the difference between you could bulk up a little bit and expanding new programs?
Just add more programming, sir. Add more programs than what we currently have.
I know, again, I'm sort of being a little dense here, but maybe you're saying you could do, you could do more programming, but you can't do more programming.
No, what I was saying is we could take we could swap out some of the programming that we currently have for different types of programs. More addition, we could take some of these programs that we have for more useful programming, like gender responsive programming. But we can swap them out. But to add on to the current list, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
How many women are in pre-release at any point in time?
Right now, we currently have about 91.
91. Okay, so we're talking about a relatively small number of people
Correct.
in the grand scheme of the state and the prison system. And
Yes, the population, it's roughly, and these are rough numbers, around 15,000 men to roughly 1,000 women, roughly. I think we have 600 women at
And when you
MCIW.
talk about your current programming and pre-release for the 91 women, is most of the current programming not gender specific?
So the current program we have is specific to that population, and they are geared for that population, some of which you could look at and identify, okay, you know, that this is gender responsive. For instance, we have a program called WIT, Women in Transition from Treatment, that I would classify as a gender responsive. For another program, though, maybe would be difficult to classify as legal aid. We have legal aid, you know, experts that come in to help out once a month or so, or on a regular basis. But
I take your point. I take your point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much. So, all in all, are all the women in programs right now?
no, it's a
Okay.
volunteer basis.
Okay. And then, I may have missed this, so I really apologize. How many women are currently enrolled in a program?
I'd have to get back with you on those numbers, sir.
Because those are important. The other question I have is that right now, we don't know the number of people that are currently in programs, and yet we're talking about expanding the programs and there's no space. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in order for them to obtain a program, and if there's a space issue, currently, based on all the Department of Correctional Services locations, would it absolutely have to be required that they would do the program within their current location?
Well, if we're talking specifically incarcerated women, they are at one facility, and for pre-release status, they have a designated wing.
They have a designated wing. And for the pre-release status of the designated wing, is there any limitation on utilizing another Department of Correctional's facility while they're going through a program? Like, are
we
they able
do.
to go back?
Yeah.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, so then is there enough space in these other facilities to expand the program if you have people leaving the facility if they're already in pre-release status?
I'm sorry, Senator, maybe we're misunderstanding what you mean. The women aren't leaving the correctional facility. They are not.
Correct.
So
So you have a pre-release, this is regarding a pre-release program, correct?
pre-release services, yes, that's correct.
There's multiple programs within the pre-release. So you have the pre-release population, and then there's various programs that are serving that pre-release population, correct?
Yes.
And part of what we've been discussing today, we appreciate the administration's time, but what we've been discussing today is the opportunity to expand the program. What we've heard that we're still not sure how many people are actually utilizing these programs. The second is that if we were to expand programs to this population of pre-release population, there's a space issue there. And the space issue is both staff and facility, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So my question was, if these are a pre-release program and there's an actual physical space issue, can we take them off campus to another Department of Public Safety and Correctional facility?
No.
Receive these programs?
No, sir. No. The women's facility is the only correctional facility in the state of Maryland. The women cannot go anyplace else. They are in the care and custody of the Division of Correction, so they need to remain at the correctional facility.
Regardless of if it's another correction facility?
We don't have another women's correctional facility.
Are there any other, okay, we'll talk offline, but, well, no, we won't talk offline. No, I got a question. So because we need to work this out, right? So,
Although I need to get out of here, so.
okay, so we're going to take this offline.
Very well.
Do you have a question for them?
I do.
One
I do.
last question, and then I gotta get going.
I do. I'm looking at the bill, and you said that there are 91 women in pre-release, and there are MCIW in their own tier because they're pre-release, correct? Roughly 91.
Yes.
Yes. So the point of this bill is to make, have available specific services for women. So you, obviously, one of the ones that has women in the title is for women. The life skills one is for the general population. But the goal of this bill is to make them gender specific and to go through some really specific services that make the transition to the outside world more seamless. So out of however much programming you currently offer, what are the ones that are gender specific? I mean, if you have 10 programs, are 3 of them gender specific, or how many?
I mean, I can go through the list of which ones.
Just a rough count.
I'd have to count them out because, again, they're all kind of different with different nuances, but I'm happy to get
Okay,
that to you.
I mean, I think that would be important because that's what this bill is getting at, is the specific needs of women prisoners.
Absolutely.
Right? So that would be important, and the specific needs of female, formerly incarcerated people, and as they're making that transition to the outside world, which may be unique. So that is, I think, what it's trying to get at. And knowing what those specific services are, because it sounds like they're not available, otherwise, why would they be in this bill?
Thank you, Senator. You are correct. I can tell you that MCIW does offer, again, a lot of programming and services that are gender responsive, specifically for the women. We have a baby bonding program, lactation services. We have outside organizations that come in to offer sexual assault discussions, domestic violence groups that come in and have work groups with the women, faith-based programs. And I think it's just a litany. There's no one specific group. There's many different outside organizations that come in and offer these services. But I would say that there are gender-responsive services provided to the women currently.
And on a regular basis for specific pre-release.
Yes, I think all of our services that we have are provided certainly at different times, based on when the organization can come in. They may come in twice a week, twice a month, once a week. We have different outside organizations and volunteers coming in, at different times to provide, these programs and services and have group discussions with the women.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
So, a pre-release component within our corrections facilities has been discussed for a long time. I'm asking you, and I'm going to ask the secretary as well, just so you know. Why can't we get this done? Why hasn't it been done?
So just would like to remind the body, this is a DGS-led project. We are not a capital construction agency. The capital construction component was removed from us back in 2016.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that. We understand that you are the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, and you are not DGS. I ask you why we haven't done this. Where's your plan for this?
So the facility is in the design phase, and the award will be for the design will be awarded in September, with construction starting 12 to 16 months after that.
Where is your plan for the program, not the facility, for the program? Do we have a copy of your plan?
We're certainly happy to provide you that information.
So we don't have that yet, and we've been talking about this for a while.
The program 1 and 2, programs both 1 and 2 are complete, and DGS does have those. Again, there's been significant progress made with the current location that's going to be in Baltimore City.
We keep going back to the location, the program. So we have been talking, we are on, this is March 26th. And this is just this year. It's just this year. But we don't have a copy of your program for a women's pre-release program.
When you say program, do you mean the programming that's going to be at the,
Yes.
or do you mean just
Yes.
the
Nope.
project in general, sir? I'm
Nope.
sorry, I'm misunderstanding.
Look at the programming.
The programming, well, the project hasn't been built yet, so all of that is still.
We're going to end that here. We're going to end that here. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause you're not going to answer the question. But that's okay. We'll take care of it.
Questions? Yes, Senator.
I'm just going to follow up one more time to see if I can get the answer. You have a program right now in the facility for the women's, okay, you have one right now?
Yes.
Okay, you want to implement that program more to that program for a new place?
It will be more.
Okay. If we could get the program that's already existed, and then at the same time, when the time is right, get the new program, it would be good for this committee to have that.
Certainly.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was that?